The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to another Keefer and Kurre show. We just got done doing a Need to Know, and it was just fantastic. I cannot believe that next week will be election week as we record this show. We're 8 days away, right? It's on Tuesday coming up next week.
November 5th.
You got any special surprises for next week?
I don't know. I kind of laid it all out there this week. Again, Tony, I just look at this situation that people just are treating this like a run-of-the-mill election, and it's anything but. And I've been trying to make that point here that even if you absolutely abhor one candidate or the other, based on what you want the future of this country to be, this is a lot bigger than the individuals running. This is completely two different directions this country can go, and that's the choice you have to make. So, I kind of mock it because in my entire lifetime, I think every election's been called the most consequential election of all time.
Sure.
And they always are using that rhetoric, but this time they might be right.
Well, the thing for Donald Trump is he can't lose. Because if he does lose, he's not going to say he lost, and if he wins, he wins. So he knows the outcome next Tuesday already. So we're good to go. And I heard some stories this morning saying basically the same thing, that he will not go down.
But why is he chastised for that when Hillary Clinton still insists she was cheated out of the 2016 election? I mean, it's
she should have gotten her ass outside the house and hit the streets. Yeah, because she didn't do it in the last couple of weeks.
I think when we used to do the ride home on 99.5 here in Birmingham, the list got up. She started making excuses why she lost and blaming people. The list was up to like 57 different things. And what you just mentioned, the fact that she just sat on her butt and thought she was an automatic and really blew her own chance, that wasn't on the list.
No.
She blamed wives that vote how their husbands tell them to is why they didn't support her.
No, the crazy thing about her too is she just fell off the face of the earth. I mean, she should have won the election, right? I mean, if she gets out 2 or 3 more times at a couple swing states, she wins.
She was the overwhelming favorite.
She was going to win, and to come that close to being the first woman president of the United States of America, and then just fall off the planet. I mean, I don't even know where she's at anymore. I see Bill more.
Well,
she
still pipes up, with her rhetoric and everything else. She called Trump was in Madison Square Garden last night with a 20,000 people deal and another 15 or 20,000 outside.
That's pretty crazy.
She called that a replay of the 1939 Nazi rally that was held at Madison Square Garden.
Sure was.
I don't see a swastika on Trump's sleeve. I don't see him having a Gestapo rounding people up. Also Madison Square Garden in 1992 was the place that Bill Clinton in the Democrat National Convention was named the candidate for president. But she didn't compare that to the Nazi rally of 1939. So it's just unbelievable how the rhetoric here and the fact that we're all supposed to be in this together as Americans. I want to embrace all my American brothers and sisters and just implore them, like I always do, think for yourself, but don't go hook, line, and sinker for a bunch of campaign rhetoric, because you're really robbing yourself and your future descendants of what this country was intended to be if you don't make a rational decision on what's best for you and best for your family. And I think in that situation, even if you don't like that one particular candidate, it's a pretty clear-cut choice right now.
Do your research and go with your heart. And I will tell you this right now. My 20-year-old son is going to vote for the first time. And he keeps asking me who I'm going to vote for. And I said, back in the 70s and 80s, you'd never even talk about this stuff. That's why you have the partitions up the side. You don't even, you would never discuss who you're going to vote for.
No.
Now everyone's got to tell everyone, okay, who you vote. It's the first thing that comes out in a conversation. And I threw out the name Trump, and he looked at me, he's like, really? And then I threw out the name Kamala. He's like, really? And
really?
And I was like, which way are you leaning? He goes, I don't know. He goes, that's why I'm asking you, Dad. And I said, well, we've always been brought up conservative and Republican. I said, just go with your heart. And he goes, well, why should I even vote? And I said, first of all, because this may be one of the closest votes we ever have. And second of all, I said, there's a ton of other stuff on that vote. There's like 15 or 16,000. I think there were 34 things we voted on the last election. So there's a lot of things. If you don't want to vote for the president, it's fine. If you want to do the lesser of two evils, whatever. But there's like 30 other things that will directly have something to do with your life on an everyday basis on these things, and do your homework. You can get online right now and you can pull those things up, because most people out of the 34 things, quite frankly, I didn't have a clue on 30 of them. And the way they're worded, there's double negatives, there's double positives. Vote yes, vote yes if you feel like you want to say no, but you really mean yes. I'm like, what? So
it's so ridiculous. I would tell Sano Tony that go back and watch the South Park episode about when PETA makes them replace cows as the South Park school mascot because it's disrespectful to cows, and the students nominate two candidates to take over as mascot: the giant douche against the turd sandwich. and the episode is hilarious because Stan,
I know it well.
One of the kids says, "I'm not going to vote for a giant douche or a turd sandwich," and everybody's going, "Well, you've got to vote. You must vote. It's everybody's responsibility to vote." And he's cast out as like an outcast and sent away because he refuses to vote. But you've got to appreciate this is the ultimate turd sandwich giant douche election.
There's no doubt.
But it's deeper than the individuals.
No doubt. Two things stick out to me. First of all, and this is why I wanted to do the show with you today, because this is not where I wanted to go, and it's great. 66% of Americans voted in the last election, which is by far the most we've ever had.
Yeah, in a pandemic.
In a pandemic. And they're sitting there saying, we need 34% didn't vote. Hell, it used to be like 30-something, 40%. I mean, and back then, quite frankly, you didn't have all this rhetoric. When we had less people voting, it seems like our country ran pretty well without people voting. But that being said, the other thing I think is crazy is there's already been 30 million people who've already voted. What the hell? We never had absentee votes. You could never vote before. No. And now all of a sudden you can just mail in it. It's like you buy one cassette, get 18 free or something. What are we doing? 30 million people have already voted? What? How's that possible?
Tony, it worked pretty well for a couple of centuries that you voted on election day.
Exactly.
What a concept.
And if you couldn't get out, you can't get out. I mean,
that's why it's called election day. Yeah, it's not election season.
Month. No. I mean, I get it. If you're handicapped, you're set up and you can't get out. I get it. I go for it. But for people who just want to go and vote early, I don't get it.
I did a radio show in 2016 where I said, this is a horrible idea. All of these different things about voting where you have a couple months, all that does is open the door to a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of integrity issues and a lot of suspicion that the process is not fair.
Yeah. And remember the last election too. Donald Trump pretty much had won the election until they started counting those mail-in votes.
Oh yeah, they stopped counting. All of the swing states stopped counting at the same time.
I know.
That's interesting. So I'm sorry. I don't like it. I like the idea of getting up on election day, going and standing in line, getting your vote in and having it counted. And we have a result by 11 o'clock that night. How could they do that back in the day with no computers and no counting machines?
That's the amazing. I know you look at some other countries, man, and it takes weeks, even months to find out who's won.
It's ridiculous.
We can have less than 3% reporting and they're already picking a winner. Go ahead.
Don't forget the quote from probably one of the worst dictators in the history of the world, Joseph Stalin. When he asked about an upcoming election in the 1940s, he said, well, you have to remember, it's not who casts the votes, it's who counts the votes.
No doubt. It's very, very good. News you can peruse. I was looking around. I wanted to talk about abortion, and we may get to that. Because there's a very interesting number that came out early last week that I just was like a real head scratcher for me, and I wanted to get you. And I love talking. If you don't get a chance to listen to Need to Know or follow Kip on Talk 99.5 or Jocks 94.5 or wherever the hell he is, the starting lineup. I do the show with him every Saturday. He's always got some really interesting stuff he talks on. And I love kind of poking your brain a little bit. So I'm going to throw a couple of news stories out. Feel free to go ahead and chime in. These are just kind of goofy stories. German police yesterday busted a pizzeria owner in Dusseldorf, Germany. When they found out that order number 40 had started getting ordered a lot. So police went by through the old drive-thru and ordered number 40, and 40 was a large meat lover's pizza served with a side of cocaine. Yeah. It was one of the best-selling pizzas we ever had, said the pizzeria owner. Here's the funny part. He was released from detention after just a few hours being in prison, and he reopened the business, starting selling pizzas number 40 with cocaine sides again. He was arrested about an hour later. They were like sitting there waiting for him. He's like, let's get that number 40 back up on the board, and got arrested for it. I used to have a friend of mine that used to sell weed outside the window of WEBN Cincinnati radio. We were on Fourth and Vine. I remember working there. His name was Alan Sells. Alan, if you're out there, God love you. He's probably dead by now, but he used to work the overnight shift, and he had this little string thing. You know, you put the money on, you tie it at the bottom, and it was an alleyway that went right by the radio station. He pulled the string up, put the weed on there, dropped the weed down there, and he just did that for 3 or 4 hours every single night and made pretty good bank. Man. Pretty good stuff. Also, yesterday, Neil's Yard Dairy in London said a con artist posing as a wholesale distributor for a French retailer has made off with 22 metric tons of award-winning cheddar worth $390,000. Before the company realized him and scammed, reported the theft on Monday. They found over 1,000 rolls, or those big round things with the stuff of cheese stolen. Funeral home in Poland this past weekend issued an unusual apology on Saturday. After a corpse they were transporting fell out of the hearse into busy traffic. Polish media reported a man was driving down the street Friday in Stolola, a city in southeastern Poland, when he first saw a sheet on his car window. When the sheet slid down, he saw a body lying on the road. For a minute, he thought he had hit somebody. It is with deep regret that we inform you that as a result of an unexpected technical failure of the electric tailgate lock on the hearse during the transport of this body of the deceased, an unfortunate event occurred which does not reflect the high standards of our company, our deep empathy towards the families of the deceased, and the respect we always showed to be deceased, the company wrote in a statement posted on a website.
Well, at least the dude in the street didn't care, so that's good.
Exactly. Woman right here, politics in Wisconsin this weekend was fined $122 and told she'll be signed, and she'll have to go ahead and pay the $120 fine every single day she leaves this in her front yard. Every single year she does a very special Halloween type of display. Okay. We've got more Halloween displays in our neighborhood over here in Russell Woods than I think Christmas displays. I mean, it's crazy, and I love it. I mean, anything that's more festive, I know it keeps going up and up and up, and people were celebrating. I tend not to do Halloween because it seems like it's about a 2 or 3 week window, and then you got to take all that crap down. Christmas, you could leave it up for 2 or 3 months. You could start putting Christmas. We got Christmas stuff up now. But evidently, this woman said, I think it's stupid. And I even told them what I was doing, the fun-sucking proposed bastard. She said it's a Halloween decoration. She parked a car in her front yard with a mechanic laying on the hood who is dead, and then put 2 mannequins in the front seat and the passenger seat, one of Joe Biden driving and Donald Trump sitting as... sitting as his escort.
And how does that fit a Halloween theme? I'm kind of baffled.
She was just trying to get a laugh. She says, I've always done something kind of extravagant, something kind of funny. And she goes, it was really hilarious. My neighbors thought it was great. And evidently City Council Wausau in Wisconsin did not think it was funny. They said it's good and it's causing problems in the neighborhood. You must take it down. She's not going to take it down. She's going to fight it and go to City Hall for $122. I thought that was weird. So just some interesting stories that I want to get into. I did want to talk about something, though. Normally, you don't see a lot of men talking about abortion because it's not our bodies. And I listened to you enough that I kind of know where you stand on this. But I did see an interesting study that just came out from the Monthly Abortion Provision Company. I guess it's a company that follows abortions through the CDC. And we have found out that abortions are actually up 19% in 2024 as compared to 2023. For anti-abortion folks, I just want to let you know that we were down, and I say we as a country, we're down 39% from 1990 to 2020. We were down 43% from 1991 to 2021. So over the last 30 years, the numbers have come down incredibly a lot. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden we back off the Roe versus Wade. We get it reversed. So why do we have more abortions now than we've ever had? And I mean, if you're an anti-abortion person, you probably need to listen to this. One of the reasons, of course, is telehealth, because there was a provision, I think the Supreme Court actually voted on this. If you're a doctor and you're in a state where it's strictly illegal for any purpose, you can still administer or prescribe abortion pills, day after pills, telemedicine. You can distribute those to states that do allow those things or don't. It doesn't matter. In other words, you can transport this. You can get prescriptions across state lines, and you're not going to go to prison. A lot of doctors weren't doing that because they were freaking out. Because of that, now telemedicine is accounting for roughly 11 to 12% of all abortion pills or supplements or anything else you need for your parenthood.
So let me ask. So morning after pills are considered an abortion, statistically.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's consistent with, all these commercials now that you can get male ED pills by consulting with a doctor in another state or wherever, or you can get medical marijuana if you have a teleconference with a doctor in Guadalajara or whatever. I knew the morning after pill was an effective means of controlling an unwanted birth, but I did not know statistically that was considered an abortion. That's really new information for me.
Yeah. I just think it's really interesting because I've got a couple people in my family who are anti-abortion, and that's fine. I don't want to get into. I'm not bringing this up for discussion of whether you're for.
Well, for two guys like against. You and me, it's a no-win discussion.
It really is, and quite frankly, we don't
have a dog. We don't have a dog in the hunt.
No, we don't, and
unless it's our own philosophy.
I do think as you get older, your mind changes, and I'll just say that. I think we get wiser. Think we're affected by life more. If you've never gotten someone pregnant by mistake, or she was running late, you've had no reason to have an abortion. So you're of course anti-abortion. But boy, I tell you what, if you've gotten someone banged up, you may look at it a little differently. That's all I'll say. So my point here is that if you, and I got a sister-in-law, I got to be really careful because I love her. She's got a list of companies on her refrigerator that goes from the top of the refrigerator all the way to the bottom and then down the side again of all these companies, whether it's Procter & Gamble, whether it's Boeing, whether it's Spirit stores, whether it's PetSmart, whatever. She has done the research and found every president, every owner of every one of these businesses. And if they are pro-abortion, she will not shop at your store. I mean, that's how stringent she is.
No wonder the list is long.
Out of control. I mean, I'm just like, dude, I don't even want to have that discussion. I know where you stand. Just what do you think? We're not going to have this discussion because you can't win that discussion even if you agree with her. But if you are staunchly supportive of something like that, and you're glad that Roe versus Wade was overturned, you got bigger problems. You got bigger issues. And I'm wondering if this is, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on this. Is this, hey, you can't have more than one cookie, so we're going to go ahead and stick our hand in the jar again? I mean, why are we having more abortions now when it seems like it would be more difficult?
That's remarkable.
And it's quite a bit more.
Well, it speaks volumes, Tony, to the argument, because people were appalled that you hear people all the time say, Roe versus Wade was overturned. That was not the case. The case was not somebody challenging the legality of Roe versus Wade, which was passed in the early 70s. It was highly controversial because the Supreme Court is supposed to make rulings on existing law and constitutional law. The Supreme Court is not supposed to make policy. That's not what they're there for. They are supposed to ratify or declare a law that's already existing unconstitutional. But the case was involving a situation in Mississippi where the state was prohibiting based on state law, a woman from going forward with an abortion, and her attorneys cited Roe versus Wade as justification, being the law of the land. That was the legal challenge. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was on the Supreme Court for a number of years, probably the most leftist, far left judge that we ever had on the Supreme Court,
she's a firecracker.
warned people for Yeah, she warned people for years that the law on the books in the Supreme Court for Roe versus Wade was legally flawed. There was no basis for it. It should not have been passed. She was all for it, 1,000% for it. But she always warned if anybody came up with the right case challenging that it's the authority of the federal government to weigh in on that because there's no constitutional provision for it. So all the Supreme Court did was say that was an improper ruling by this court, and they overturned it. To basically to address the case in Mississippi where the state was challenging the legality of it. Bottom line is that didn't prohibit abortion. That just sent it back to each individual state to decide in their legislators or through referendums to make that determination. And a lot of states, even ones that are considered red states like Ohio and Kansas, who have consistently voted Republican, this is another one of those issues. This is not necessarily a party thing. Ohio and Kansas have both certified abortions in their states, where you would think they would be places, having voted for the Bushes and Trump and Republican candidates over the years. But if it goes back to the states, the citizens decide there. So I'm not completely shocked, because I don't see what the problem is of letting your states decide. And the argument, if I live in North Carolina and I'm a female who wants an abortion, and North Carolina decides that as a state, the citizens say we don't want abortion to be legal in our state. I mean, is traveling to Virginia, the neighboring, that doesn't mean you can't go right next door. Well, it's just asking too much of them to have to. If it's not legal in your state and you can go to the adjoining states, I think there's, I've been
if you want to get an abortion, you can get an abortion. And I've been saying this, yes or no. And again, I don't want to get, when this whole thing went down, the world was blowing up. We're so knee jerk. And of course, everyone just got fired up, and that's fine. But it was like, oh my gosh, it's illegal. You can no longer get it. I said, and I was telling my son, I said, you can get an abortion in this country. If you want to get an abortion, you'll find an abortion. You can figure it out, whether it's across the street or across the country, you can figure it out. Hopefully you've got that planned, and obviously through your own responsibility of getting pregnant in the first place. I'm not talking about people who get raped and things like an incest. I'm talking about for the most part, which is, by the way, 99.9% of all pregnancies in this country are things like, I forgot it, or the rubber fell off. Sorry. Those are the ones. And so for the people that aren't responsible for that, if they want to get it, you can get one. And I knew that. These are the same people that were freaking out and buying deep freezers during COVID because they thought we were going to run out of red meat. What the heck? I mean, no.
Insane.
It's crazy. They got. Well,
I've been in the gambling business my whole career, and about half the states had some form of gambling. Others didn't have casinos, but all your citizens could still gamble. They just get in the car and drive somewhere. I mean, this country, again, was conceived, and I talked about on Need to Know. The Constitution gives states a lot of power to develop their own constitution and their own laws. And if you live in a state where that's not legal, I'm sorry if it's an inconvenience, but it's not. That didn't prohibit abortion, and I think it's even encouraged more participation. And again, I'm not going to weigh in on my philosophy, whether I agree with it or not. I don't feel like I have any standing to actually make a comment, because I certainly see valid arguments on both sides, but I'm not going to weigh in on that. But I think the whole hysteria that, oh my God, abortions are now illegal. People are telling me what I have to do with my body. I need to go full term with pregnancies. That's never what this was about.
No, it never was. And again, I appreciate the passion and the fervor, and I appreciate the digging in the heels. I know when someone's really passionate about something, I respect that. Regardless of what side you're on, it's very, very debatable. Wanted to, and maybe you know this. What is Las Vegas? How is Las Vegas on presidential elections? Are they pretty much on or not? Because there's been a major swing this morning that I get notifications on swings on some of these provisionals and some of these proposal bets, and this is really amazing how much this has just moved. What do you know as far as in Vegas and politics and how often they're correct?
As far as odds setters,
yeah, whether they're right or not.
I don't
because
know.
The line just moved. The line just moved big time, and I'm like just 5 minutes ago, just moved big time.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if I need to check the news and see if someone just did something really stupid.
I think they've been fairly accurate. Again, a lot of there's a lot of misnomers about Las Vegas that you can bet on anything. Mm-hmm. That's really not true. Yep. Nevada's gambling is pretty tightly controlled. Mm-hmm. I can't remember what we were talking about earlier in the year with Case when we did some shows with him, but he says the perception you can bet on anything in Las Vegas is not really right.
No.
So all the casinos I go to, there's not odds on the board for the presidential election. There are gambling services that put out odds, and maybe there are some props available in some dark corners of Nevada somewhere. But I would say the gambling industry as a whole, outside of Las Vegas, offshores, of course, you can literally bet on anything with the betting shops in England, where a lot of these odds come from. I think they've been fairly accurate over the years. I know they missed out on the Clinton 2016 election, like we talked about. She was a heavy favorite to win that one of the great upsets in political history in recent years. But other than that, I think they've been pretty accurate.
1948. Who was running 1948? You should know this. I don't.
Thomas Dewey against Harry Truman.
I knew you'd know that. 1948.
Dewey actually held up a newspaper from the Chicago Tribune at midnight of election night. Dewey defeats Truman. And by the time they counted all the votes overnight, Dewey had to live with that embarrassment the rest of his life because the Chicago Tribune was wrong.
1948
was reelected.
1948 and 2016, which you just nailed both of them. Those are the two elections that, according to several articles I found, where Las Vegas was on the wrong side. They had the wrong person actually favored to win the election. Have you looked at the? I always tell my friends, they're like, "Who do you think's going to win next Tuesday night?" So I can tell you who's going to win. Because all you got to do is look at
who Vegas likes.
I'm just telling you. I don't. Well, long shots when they do, but I mean twice since Vegas has been opened in the 1920s, 30s, whatever it was. Twice. Yeah, twice they've been wrong.
Bugsy Siegel in the 20s. Yeah.
So, do you want to take a stab at what the odds are right now?
I would say the trending toward Trump has been pretty significant in the last couple of weeks. So unless something just earth-shattering has happened, I imagine Trump's odds probably strengthened in this headline you're about to give us.
Give me a line. Give me a line on it. Minus what?
Is it a money line or?
It's a money line.
Yeah, I would think Trump has to be about minus maybe 175 or 180 at this point.
You're so good. It was minus 160.
160
this morning. And I'm looking at it right now. It's minus 200. Kamala.
Wow, that's a big jump.
Huge jump. I mean, this is like buying 5 or 6 points in a college football game. I mean, this is Kamala this morning was plus $1.40. She's now plus $1.60. Of course, obviously, you're not going to get the same money on both sides when you're doing plus and minuses. So right now,
that's why hotels are 90 stories in Vegas, because they get money no matter what you bet.
Right now, Donald Trump is 2-1 to win the election next Tuesday.
That's amazing. That is a huge spread for presidential.
That
election.
Is huge. I can go back. It wasn't that 2020. It wasn't that in 2016. And I would say that Clinton was certainly more in cahoots in winning the presidential election, because Trump didn't have a shot. I mean, people were still joking about him running, for God's sake.
Well, and that's the real irony of the 2016 election. The reason that Trump got so much visibility, because he didn't have to. Hillary Clinton had 5 times more money behind her in that election, but Trump got so much free coverage because all the networks acted like he was some lunatic that had no chance, and they covered him. From sun up to sundown.
We love
for
underdogs.
Months.
Yeah, we love underdogs.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me. That just tells me right now that if Donald Trump doesn't win next Tuesday, that's just amazing. I mean, that it's 2-1. That's I normally wouldn't even bet on something 2-1 because I don't want to lose that juice. And you see a lot of baseball games or hockey games where it's minus 200 or more. You usually just kind of stay away from those things because, on a bad night they can lose and you're losing double your money. But that's probably one of the biggest, for considering this is supposed to be a super tight election. The tightest we've ever had. I mean, I was thinking 140 plus 120, something like that. To see it go from minus 160 to 200 is crazy. Let me ask you one final question. I love talking politics with you because I always feel smarter after we talk politics, and I knew you like Dewey in 1948. And I love that about you. This is the Keefer and Kurre Show. You can hear the show at least 5 days a week right here on the Tony Kurre Radio Podcast. By the way, our podcasts are going through the roof. We've got this Inferno show that's going great. The starting lineup show is fantastic. You can check out all the things. What's your website where all your stuff you're doing is? What's your
KQ shows? KQ shows. Plural.com.
KQ shows.
All of our all of the things I do in collaboration with Terry Quillian on radio, all my shows on TKR. Any shows I do a lot of programs for Salem Broadcasting, which is a big podcast provider. So everything there, and some of our Hall of Fame shows that Terry and I have done are also on that page. Awesome. KQshows.com.
And then if you're still thinking about it, you still have the pen in your hand, write down K4wins.com. K4wins.com. Yes. We're hitting about 62%, which is fantastic.
Really good. Amazing.
We had an 18-2 run in pros. I'm not sure how we did this past weekend. I think we did pretty good. I think we were.
Yeah, good. I was actually, and of course, these guys don't listen to me very much. I think I'm Case Keefer's dad, so I'm included. But I went 3-1 on the NFL.
There you go.
I'm happy to brag. The only loser was taking Houston, who won straight up, but they didn't cover.
Yep. I think I went 2-2. And then on Saturday, I had K-State. I hate when a team doesn't cover, but they win. It's like, if you're not going to cover for me, just lose. just lose. Just
right.
Lose. Then, of course, I had,
you don't deserve to win if you don't cover.
Exactly. I had Notre Dame. And then, of course, I had LSU plus the whatever it was, 3.5, and they're up at 10.5. And I'm like, Brian Kelly will figure out a way to lose this. That was probably the best position he's been in as a coach at LSU in the longest time, to be a double digit, to be an underdog and be a double digit up at halftime. And his defense was playing lights out. They're just playing a great game and just let it go. Let me ask you real quick, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So we knew that after Donald Trump lost, or did he lose, whatever, in 2020, people are like, what if he runs again in 2024? Oh my gosh, it is going to be a zoo. And people are like, oh, he's not going to run again. Melania will never let that happen.
He's going to be 78 years old.
He'll be divorced. His wife will leave his ass. He's going to go back to Mar-a-Lago. He knows he can become president. That's all he wanted to do. He just wanted to prove to him and the world that he's the strongest and most powerful man in the world. He did that. He has nothing else to prove. He ain't going to run again. Here he comes back running. And of course, he's been talking about it for 3 years. So this is his last shot. Win or lose. He still does have he's got a cock crab on the Republican Party. I mean, he does, and we know that.
He's completely changed the Republican Party. It's now a populist movement. Unions are endorsing him. People that have been lifelong Democrats are now being kind of abandoned by their policies. These are kind of salt of the earth Americans, and he has started just a populist movement. And that's why you get a lot of never Trumpers on the Republican side turn their nose up at him, because they think they're elite and superior. Yep. All of the labels that the Republican Party has had all these years, now the Democrat is the parties. The Democrats have become the parties of the rich and elite. Look at their biggest backers. They're all the tech companies, all the major corporations. J.V. Fitzger, who's the governor of Illinois, who's the heir to the Hyatt throne, is one of the biggest leftists in the country. Of course, George Soros, all those people, all these are huge money entities. Trump has completely flipped the script of what, you still hear Trump's going to cater to billionaires, and it's billionaires making those commercials.
Exactly. Elon Musk, thank you very much.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. He probably just calls him up and says, listen, I'm $20 million short today. Can you help me out? Sure. Let me stroke your check. I'll Venmo you $20 million in just a couple minutes. What do our politics look like after this election?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting.
Assuming Donald Trump obviously can't run anymore. I mean, do all of a sudden do we have this ramp up of Republicans who think like Donald Trump, like the Vances of the world, who are willing to play dirty and down, and does things settle down? How's it play out?
Well, if you really look at the bench of the respective parties right now, there are more guys in the wings. Ron DeSantis is a super candidate down the road. J.D. Vance has really made his star.
He really is. If they make it, he's going to be a VP that you're going to hear. Like I didn't hear a damn thing from Kamala until all of a sudden she became the run for the president. Normally you don't hear anything about the VP because it's kind of it's kind of like.
They send them to Burundi for the whatever jungle celebration of the new king or whatever.
Exactly.
The vice president
the stuff I don't want to do. Yeah. But
J.D. Vance is a rising star. He was already a celebrity from his book, Hillbillyology, and they made a movie out of it, a Ron Howard movie. And this guy this guy is not afraid, Tony, to go on all of these extremely leftist hostile shows. And usually he not only handles himself, he usually comes out pretty much victorious. This guy is sharp as a tack and a rising star. I almost think it's a sure thing. If Trump does win, the next presidential candidate in 2028 will be J.D. Vance on the Republican side.
I think you may be right. And then on the Democratic side,
who's on their bench?
I really don't know. I mean, this is something where you have to look down the road. And remember, when Joe Biden won in 2020, everyone said, amazingly enough, everyone said they're setting it up for Kamala to be our next president. And little did we know that Joe was going to be dropping out 3 months before the election, and she actually is now in that position. And I will say this, if she does not win, regardless of whether it's her policies or not, I think for the American people to make a snap judgment on voting the most powerful person in the world into her office, having just known her because I don't know who the hell she is. I mean, I didn't follow her as a prosecutor. I don't know I don't have her background. I didn't read her books. I didn't know who she was. She's a VP. I shouldn't have to. And all of a sudden she's running for the most powerful position in the world. I think a lot of people just don't know who she is. And if you want to do your homework, maybe it'll change your mind. If you were going to vote for her, go check out what she's done in the past. There's no claim for anything, but
if you're concerned about foreign policy, she knows. I mean, she has complete zero experience dealing with anybody around the world. I love the soundbite that when she was giving Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, advice on how to react to the October 7th attacks last year by Hamas, she says, well, I've looked at the maps, whatever the hell that means. And I'm telling you, I'm urging you not to go on the offensive in Rafah, which is a hotbed for the Hamas terrorist organization. I don't see how you can successfully execute a military operation in Rafah. Tony, she doesn't have a clue. She's never been out of the United States. She's never dealt with a foreign dignitary. I mean, putting this person in charge is just going to be more of the same, where people that we didn't vote for, that we don't even know who they are making the calls because she doesn't have any qualifications whatsoever.
We've had females in very powerful positions. I can go back to Margaret Thatcher and certainly the Queen, and we can go, abroad. We've never had a woman president. Will we have a woman president in your lifetime, assuming you live another 40 years? That's what I'm going for. Will we, first of all? And second of all, is the world ready for the United States to have a woman president? I'm not going to do James Brown. It's a man's world. Okay. But I will say this. I always think to myself, what does the rest of the world want for the United States? And that is, they don't want Donald Trump to be president. Maybe Putin, maybe some of them do, but they know that Donald Trump's going to be a pain in the ass.
Well, that's right. That's right.
And sometimes we need to be a pain in the ass. And
that's why Iran has publicly made it known they want to assassinate him so he doesn't get the job, because he's gonna just completely neuter them again. By the time he left office the first time, they were broke because he put so many sanctions on them. He told people around the world, if you buy one drop of oil from Iran, the United States is not going to do business with you. And they all folded like accordions because so much of the world depends on United States money. And Trump is not afraid to stand up in front of NATO and say, look, you don't start paying for your own protection, we ain't going to do it no more. And they know he's serious. And some people say he's unstable for doing that, but a lot of people applaud it and say, it's time for the United States to stop being the nanny of the whole world. People need to step up and handle their own responsibility. And I actually applaud that, because I'm tired of being the provider. We've pumped billions and billions of dollars into Ukraine. That's a war that's never going to be ended. There's no resolution
now the North Koreans are involved. So
they're sending troops to help the Russians. So, but at the same time, we get a hurricane that just due to a complete fluke wipes out Western North Carolina. Although the hurricane hit in the Panhandle of Florida,
and FEMA's out of money.
FEMA said we don't have any money. We've given Ukraine over $100 billion. For God's sake, let's take care of our people. I'm sorry if that makes me an ugly American to say Americans first. And I didn't say America first. I said Americans first. My brothers and sisters, the citizens of this country, it's their money that's being spent like drunken sailors. And it's when something happens in this country and we say we don't have money for that without Congress bringing up some more money by passing a bill, that's absolutely unacceptable.
God bless you, brother. This is Keefer and Kurre.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.